Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our friend, Hooks Johnston.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Thanks. Right. Double mic'd.
How's it going, Hooks?
Fine. Pleasure to be here. Hello, Tricia. How are you? Good.
If you want to use your mic.
All right. Excuse
There's
me.
a lot of deaf people in the back there. So
Gotcha.
Sorry
Yep.
about that.
Am I loud
That's
enough
good.
for you back there? No.
Can you hear? Oh, that's good. There we go. All right.
Can you hear me yet?
Awesome.
All right,
All right. Well, this is really exciting having you here. Because I'm telling you, you guys are really tight-lipped, and usually it's really easy for me to get the interview questions and stuff, but this particularly was really hard because you guys, it's like such a big thing, like Inova and what they're doing, and yet it's like, it's like a silent, launch or something. So we want, before we go there, we just like to start with you.
Okay.
We always start where were you born, where you were raised, what did your parents do, and then talk about maybe your first entrepreneurial endeavor, whether it's a paper route or a lemonade stand. Start with you.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I was born and raised in Glastonbury, Connecticut, which is a suburb of Hartford, Connecticut. My father was an aeronautical engineer for Pratt & Whitney. My mother was a speech pathologist in the public school system. Mm-hmm. And I know you asked me earlier to think about entrepreneurial things I did as a young person, and what I remember most is I just was always working. Before I was 16, I was doing yard work, and I turned 16, I was painting houses and doing a paper route and working at a tennis club, sweeping courts and carrying towels around, refilling water buckets. I just always worked. Mm-hmm. Did all the way through high school, and then at least during the summers in college and some other times if I could. It's just part of that ethic of always being out there. Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Glastonbury, Connecticut.
Connecticut, okay.
Got it. Right outside of the great city of Hartford, Connecticut. I'm sure you all have never been there, but.
So, are you a New England fan, Patriots fan?
I grew up in New England, yes.
New England, okay.
Yeah.
No,
I don't talk about it much because it makes people hate me just because I.
That's good. Okay, so we always, I know you guys like to tweet. So hashtag Startup Grind at Inova at HooksJ, HOOKSJ. So I like to just kind of start off. I think Harvard Business School, Brown University. I'd like to just sort of fast forward. I know there's a lot skipping here, but was more interested in the Valhalla partners. Mm-hmm. You're the co-founder at the beginning days of Valhalla.
Yep.
Maybe talk about that, because I think that will put some context to let where you are right now with Inova.
Sure.
What was sort of the aha moment for Valhalla, and then what was sort of your vision for it? Because I know you guys invested a lot of startups here in the area.
Yeah.
So let's start with that.
Sure. So the genesis of Valhalla was in the tech bubble aftermath, right? So I'd been in the venture business for a few years, managed 2 funds with FBR. Gene Rickers and I were the 2 managing directors at FBR. It was a tough time to raise a fund. We decided to step away from FBR. Art Marks, who'd been a long time, 20-plus year partner at NEA, had also left NEA around that time. So we all knew each other from investments we made together and just being in the local VC tech community. And we started a process of talking about what sort of went wrong that caused the excesses of the period of the bubble. We talked about how it was that what investment philosophies had worked for us in our venture experience, what types of companies that we worked with, what types of CEOs that we worked with, what stages had we invested in, what sectors of the market had worked for us. And we talked about if we did start a firm, how we would make decisions, as a group, how we would work with companies. And we tried to distill all the best practices from our past experiences into a new strategy for a new firm. And we eventually, after probably 6 months of conversation, including some weekends away where we'd go off and, stay in a little lodge with a whiteboard and try to come up with ideas about what we should do. We ran the idea by some friends of Art's at J.P. Morgan, and they liked it, and they said they would make a first commitment to the fund, which gave us the confidence to go out in what Art described as nuclear winter after the bubble burst, and trying to find people who wanted to invest in tech-focused venture funds. There weren't many. Some people just met with us, I think, so they could yell at somebody.
Yeah.
We counted at one point, I think it was over 130 first meetings with institutional limited partners, from Finland to, all over the U.S. and eventually we got a year later to a first close and then eventually to a second close. So we were in business with a fund of about 165 million.
Sounds like very much like a startup story.
It was
right? Like pitching. You said 100.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We not
LPs.
only weren't getting paid, but we were paying for our travel and our offices and support staff.
Yeah.
So we were well out of pocket on that one.
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because, folks who know Valhalla, they've invested in companies like Netscape, Register.com, Career Builder, Parature. Duke Chung was one of our speakers here. That was another investment. So you guys had a very amazing track record. And we actually had Dan Gordon, your technology partner. I don't know, anyone in here who was for the Dan Gordon talk? So that was a Valhalla technology partner.
You missed something. He's always insightful and entertaining.
Yep, exactly. So did you have more to talk about Valhalla? Because I think this is a good sort of. Did you have any I wasn't sure, but did you have any health related startups?
We did only a couple of health related startups, and I had one that was meaningfully successful. That was Get Well Networks. I don't know if you know Michael O'Neill. He's a local entrepreneur, wonderful guy. Actually started the company based on his own personal experience after having been in the hospital with cancer in his 20s. He built a successful company, sold to Welsh Carson for about $100 million, and it was a success for him. And he's now still running the company, and they've actually using it as a platform company to acquire other businesses and build it on as part of Michael's organization. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what I found very interesting is so you've been involved with private VCs and funds and raising money in the LP, and then obviously it's a different beast going to the private to the corporate VC world. So now this is sort of fast forward the Inova strategic investment funds, which is that's the corporate VC, and then also now the personalized health accelerator, which is obviously part of a bigger umbrella.
Yes.
So maybe talk about that, how you got involved with that. We mentioned about the CEO, you were shared on the same board, and then maybe talk about that whole story of how such a big institution like Inova, which when you think about these guys don't really innovate, and then crossing path with someone like you, now they're doing really amazing things. So let's talk about the beginning days there.
Sure. So I got to know Inova as what's called a community member on various Inova boards. I was on the, they have an investment committee that helps to manage the assets of the organization. Then I was on the Fair Oaks board. Fair Oaks is one of the regional hospitals out out by Fair Oaks Mall. And I joined what's called the Healthcare Services Board, which is a system-wide board that manages, measures and tracks the quality of care provided across the system. So how many hospital-acquired infections did we have last month? How many falls did we have? Were there any, surgical problems, personnel problems? So everything that, everything that went wrong we hear about, and then and there's a lot of now measures that are shared across the industry that you sort of benchmark your own performance against, and it was the Healthcare Services Board job to understand those numbers and to suggest remedies for things that we could address. So from that outside perspective, I was learning a lot about Inova and getting to know a lot of the people there when they really made a decision, and I couldn't tell you exactly when it was. I'm going to guess it's 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little longer ago, that they wanted to make some fundamental changes into the organization to be more entrepreneurial, more leading edge, and that required a change in the culture. So the first thing that they did was they, I should say we, I suppose, but then it was they, right?
Yeah.
Is they changed some of the senior clinical leadership. So Chris O'Connor, who ran the cardiology department at Duke Medical Center, was hired to run the Heart and Vascular Institute. Skip Trump was hired, who was the CEO of the Roswell Park Cancer Center in Buffalo, was hired to run the Inova Cancer Institute. John Niederhuber, who was the CEO of the National Cancer Institute, was hired to run something called the Translational Medical Institute, which was a vehicle to bring innovations in science right to the bedside, basically, to embed it in clinical care inside the system. And those new hires brought in like-minded physicians and researchers and built, really a very robust group of leading-edge physicians. They filled out some areas of clinical discipline that we hadn't addressed before, and they began to get. They were on scientific advisory boards, and they were getting involved with clinical trials, and they were working directly with the pharmaceutical companies and the medical device companies. And it began to change the way Inova, viewed itself and the way that it treated patients and how it dealt with the outside world. It then became clear that, Inova needed a better way to find innovation outside the system and assimilate it. It was very clear that there was a lot of pressure in healthcare, both on the reimbursement side or the revenue side, forcing change, and there was a sort of an increasing rate of advancement of, I'll call it medical science in general, right? So Inova needed to find, it could do some innovation on its own, but it needed to find the right companies to partner with outside the system. And a lot of those companies were young entrepreneurial companies, not the big device companies and others that they were used to working with. So the idea was, how are we going to find these companies? How are we going to assimilate that technology into the system in a way that's going to improve the quality of care for our patients, get us into new areas of service that we haven't been in before, materially reduce the cost of care for our patients. And so that's when I was asked to make some recommendations about how they might do that. And first they were going to consult with me, and then they asked me if I would actually write the plan, and then they asked me if I would execute the plan, and suddenly I'm up here in a suit on a stage with a microphone in my hand. Right? So,
exactly.
But it was myself and somebody, Pete Jobsy, who's not here tonight, but he's Pete and I are co-managing directors for Inova Strategic Investments and the Personalized Health Accelerator, and we're like partners, like general partners in a venture fund. We're equals, and we make decisions together. And so what we ended up with, we're part of this larger strategy. They also hired a guy named Todd Stottlemyre, who's been a successful CEO of a number of companies, many innovative companies, to come in and run what's called the Inova Center for Personalized Health. Now, it really isn't personalized health isn't a different clinical discipline. It's something that needs to be infused into the system in everything that we do. But by having Todd focused on it, it gives it more emphasis, and he's rallying the organization to try and bring some of these new clinical practices into use in the system. So Pete and I enter the scene, and we're allocated an amount of capital, $150 million, from Inova to find innovation outside the system that's going to improve the quality, that's going to let us bring new services to market for our community, materially reduce the cost of care for patients, or significantly increase the clinical quality, efficacy, or safety of the services we provide to the community. So, of course, the first thing we did was talk to as many people as we could around the system about what opportunities, threats they saw out there, how they were adapting to the changing circumstances, and what help they needed. And so we continue that conversation with them all the time. to try and understand what their needs are. And then we make investments sometimes in funds, so healthcare-focused venture funds, where the degree of overlap between what their investment charter is and our needs is the highest, right? So we're looking for funds that have successful track records investing, but also are focused where we're looking for innovation. We make some direct investments in companies. Sometimes those will be the portfolio companies of the funds. Sometimes those will be other companies. And the third area is we are starting very soon. We think probably in September will be start date, the Inova Personalized Health Accelerator, which is a little more focused than the strategic investing activities. That's focused specifically on personalized health and precision medicine. So it's a narrower focus than sort of everything Inova does, right? But we want to work with a relatively small group of companies, probably ultimately 10, 15 a year will be, we think, our run rate, where we're an active partner, either working with our own doctors and patients or with our operations people, in some other capacity. But it's meant to be full-on engagement, both in the accelerator and with the system. Yeah.
Okay. No,
Am I going too far?
No, yeah, because I have a whole bunch of questions.
Okay.
So I have some really detailed questions about the accelerator.
Yeah, okay.
Because there's a lot of startups here.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to rewind a little bit back here. So I met Hooks through John Faust, who's the supervisor, and we did a tour of Inova.
Yeah, well, part of Inova, right?
A part of Inova.
Yes.
And it's interesting because I remember, so you guys know where Inova is in Inova. Oh, I'm sorry, Inova. Okay, so Inova. I'm an iPhone kind of guy. Inova. So if you guys go in Falls Church, you'll see the Inova Hospital. And then people always say, hey, you guys know where the Exxon Mobil, the headquarters? So that's the building that they took. So we went there and we visited it. And it's the Exxon, well, it's the Mobil headquarters.
Right.
So it's 117 acres, and they vacated in 2015. You guys moved in, and it's 4 buildings, and one of those buildings is the strategic investment, and then the accelerator.
Well, we're in one of the buildings. Yes,
in one of the buildings, right.
We don't need 400,000 square feet.
Yeah, you don't need 400,000 square feet, right? Mobil does.
Right, yeah.
But anyways, let's talk about that. I mean. So now you guys are there, and you're going to be adding some more buildings and making this sort of like the new next generation innovation hub for Inova.
Yeah.
And so, let me just finish this here.
Sure,
Okay, so the accelerator. I want to talk about the accelerator.
Okay.
It's the first of its kind. Accelerators have sort of popped up over the years, but so then, for example, Illumina. So that's the genomics. They do the
Sequencing,
right?
Sequencing machines, yes.
He's educating me, so sorry. So they started that in 2014, and then Harvard Business School has like Kraft Precision Medicine Accelerator. So then Techstars have their sort of Cedars-Sinai. None of those are healthcare provider, created by the healthcare provider. So that's interesting to know about that. So I wanted you to talk about like getting Inova, like a very big organization, to sort of spearhead this, where traditionally it's been these other third party. How did you convince Inova to make its own accelerator program?
Yeah, it didn't take a lot of convincing. It was really something they had wanted to. They really were anxious to host some startup companies in personalized health on the campus, and I think the accelerator is a great way to at least jumpstart that effort. But it's also a way, for us, the new campus really provided an opportunity in many ways. So just to give you an idea about Inova, it's about a $3.5 billion healthcare system in revenue. It's all in Northern Virginia, very small geographic footprint, just 5 hospitals. By far and away the largest one is Fairfax Hospital, which is in Fairfax / Falls Church / Maryfield, right? And the Exxon Mobil campus is literally across the street from Fairfax Hospital. And it's mostly undeveloped land. It's mostly woods with some buildings in the middle where I think the Mobil people like to,
walk the dog.
Live peacefully, away from the glare of the outside world. So Um, so I think there's an interest in bringing all kinds. I mean, all the buildings were empty, right? 1.2 million square feet of office space. So we're moving some Inova activities onto the campus. The Inova Shar Cancer Institute is going to be there. A number of some of the IT folks will move. They've moved Pete and I and our little team there. But there's still other space. And so we're looking for people who are also in the same ecosystem, same healthcare ecosystem to locate there. We'd love to get, build a cluster, let's call it, of folks who are interested in healthcare and wellness, and make them part of that. Hopefully provide enough mass to create an entrepreneurial spark there. We think having the accelerator there will be helpful. We hope that the companies, as they complete the program, some of them will choose to stay, on the campus and just move into hopefully a larger space because they'll be growing, right? But stay with us there if they can and maintain their connection to our program.
So you jumped a little ahead. So I wanted to go, getting into the accelerator program. You guys have this rolling admission program, right? Where, maybe perhaps describe that, and then maybe talk about how it looks like in the program. I know that there isn't a definitive start and end date for companies entering the program.
Well, sure.
Okay, so and then so let's talk about the role. How do we get into the program? It's a roll-in admission.
Well, of course we haven't launched yet, so I can't tell you exactly. But we do have a website, ipha.org, that needs some updating. But we think we'll launch in September. Start taking applications then. The application will be some combination of written materials and a short video. Details will be on the website, and that'll be just to get a meeting, right? It's not like your college application where you send it in, you either get in or you don't. It's going to be it's more like, as you said, a resume, right? You want the interview, right? So that's how we'll do it. We'll work. Our opinion is companies are going to come in at very different stages of development. They're going to be in very different areas. It could be a technology company with software developers, building analytics capabilities. It could be a diagnostics company, that has some actually clinical innovation that they want to roll out, and could be a medical device of some kind. They're all going to have very different needs. So a standard program that everybody goes through at the same time doesn't make sense. We'd rather take a smaller number. So some accelerators have enormous classes of 20 or 30, and we'll just have, we think we'll do 10 to 15 a year. We'll have an individualized plan for each company based on their needs and the CEO's background and abilities. Before they come into the program, we'll have an action plan that we've all agreed on. That the Inova Accelerator team have agreed on, and the company have agreed on. And when they get into the program, we'll work the plan, and that should also include. I want to point out some people on the clinical side or on the operating side at Inova. We don't want this to be just a activity that's confined to the accelerator space. It's going to be want to be touching the hospital system in some meaningful way, even while it's in the accelerator program.
Okay, so the type of, so I wanted to stress the type of startups that you're looking at. I'm assuming analytics company startups. Many things are startups that are in AI, big data, medical records, wearables, outputs from wearables.
Sure. There's all, I know this is hard. We've even been back and forth over how do we define personalized health and precision medicine, and everybody's got a different idea, right? But just generally speaking, it's going to be, there are insights that can be drawn from your DNA. There are insights that can be drawn from all kinds of other biologic information, the microbiome, your RNA. I mean, there's just so many different places to get individualized data. There's also environmental data. There's social demographic data that's relevant. So all of this, personalized health is meant to take all those sorts of things into account, or at least some part of them, and come up with a plan that's right for you, for the patient. And that could be information technology driven. It could be a diagnostic. It could be something that predicts disease. It could be something that is intended to prevent disease. It could be something that predicts your reaction to a therapy that might be recommended. And so it steers the physician in a direction, that based on some information that's unique to you, to design a course of action that we think is likely to have a better outcome than you would have if they were just treated like a, Mr. X or Mrs. X.
Right.
Yeah.
So just kind of recap, admit a few companies, 6 companies in the first 6 months.
I think probably, there's
6. Okay.
Probably do 8 to 10 the first 12 months as
12
we get
months.
rolling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then like 12 every year.
Yeah, I would think
Okay.
that's about right. Yeah.
And then investments wise, how much would you guys put in for how much
So
equity?
when a company starts the program, they get a $75,000 check, which is meant to be useful, but not. And obviously, this isn't life-changing for anybody involved, but it's enough money, hopefully, to afford some activities that will support the milestones that were defined in the plan. We'll spend, an intensive, 4 or 5 months. We'll probably it'll be individualized to some extent, which is, hopefully by far and away the most valuable part of the program. The $75K is relatively modest. As companies leave the accelerator, however, we want them to be in a position to raise outside money. And we've said that if they can raise $250,000 from a third party, not mom and dad, but a third party,
Right.
We'll match it.
Okay.
And then they become eligible, of course, for investment from the fund, which is the $150 million fund, which is a different process. We have an investment committee, and we have to go through that whole process. And of course, we're now investors in 5 healthcare-focused venture funds. We're probably be 7 by the end of this year. And we can provide introductions to those funds, and of course other funds and other health systems where we have they're similar groups to ours and other hospital systems around the country, and we're getting to know them. We have regular calls with a bunch of them. We share ideas and leads, but that'll be another way we can help people come out.
So I was trying to compare apples to apples here. I looked at TechStars, Cedar Sinai Accelerator.
Yeah.
What they do is they give. So yours is 75,000. They would put 20,000 for 6% stake in the company, with optional $100,000 convertible bridge loan afterwards. So yours is clearly better. And then 75,000, 10%, and then $500,000, right? And then with that, then you can open up more doors to the 7 VC funds plus 150 million.
I'd back off the term better. I think it's more money.
Yeah.
But the program is
what's
what really should be better. That's what we want to be better. And we have brought somebody in. We could have 2 people who work full time in the accelerator. I'll tell you, we're not ready to announce who he is yet. It's a he, but I'll tell you his background. I think it's 5 healthcare startups. He's been a senior executive or CEO. He's raised $125 million in venture money as CEO. He's taken a company public and been the CEO of another public healthcare software company. Very experienced, with the FDA, with selling to hospital systems and others. So that's the kind of person we wanted. We want somebody who's been successful on a similar road to the ones that the entrepreneurs that we'll bring into the accelerator are planning to go down. We think that will both make you more qualified to give quality advice and also make you more credible, I think. And so we have him. We'll have another individual with a similar background, and then Pete and I will spend a portion of our time working with the companies directly as well. We're all in the sort of the same space, so I've got a glass door on my office, so
But actually, what's really interesting is that not only you're providing the third-party TechStars, other accelerators, where they're not so close to the client, the customer. You guys are the customer, right?
We can be.
Well,
You
can be.
Yeah.
But you give that access to the doctors and physicians right across the street. So that's kind of the next question: the expectations of these startups. So I join in the program. Probably have to figure out. They have to have a working prototype.
We would like to see solid evidence of real intellectual property, right? So if it's software algorithm. We need to see evidence that it provides meaningful insight that would be useful, to a doctor or someone else in the system. If it's a device, we actually had somebody the other day who brought out this little bag, and it was all full of all these pieces, and he put this thing together, and it worked. Right? It wasn't beautiful, but it worked, and it did what he said it would do, and it was actually really exciting stuff. So that's the kind of thing we're looking for. We don't want to have somebody, a man in a plan or woman in a plan. We want something a little more substantial that we can really work on.
So a dirty prototype, something
Yeah.
that makes it,
That's right.
the MVP. So maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but then where now you infuse money, advising. How soon do you try to get these guys to test runs with real? I mean,
Yeah.
so explain that. Like,
Sure.
how do they kick the tires of their product?
There are rules and regulations, so we have to, we very conscious of what we can and can't do with these companies, and then that's part of what we'll figure out before they start the program, right? If they have a 2-year wait for an FDA approval, and we can't get directly involved with patients and doctors, and that's really the main value add that we can provide them. It's just not the right fit, right? So if there are meaningful company milestones we can meet that would cause them to be able to attract more capital and actually have an impact inside Inova, which is the point, right? And ultimately attract more capital, that's what we'll do. So we want to work this plan with them before they show up, and everybody feel confident that we can make real progress in the time they'll be in the accelerator. So if it's possible, we'll try to get them, the exposure they need, but only if it's, only if we can.
Okay.
Right?
Hashtag startup grind at Hooks J
Yeah.
and at Inova. Inova. So I wanted to go further into maybe talk about some of the mega trends you see in healthcare tech.
Right.
Maybe your top 3, prediction.
Okay, well, I'm not a clinician, so you're going to
Sure.
have to forgive
Okay.
me here for these. So the trends that are interesting to us, let's say at Inova Strategic Investments and the accelerator, one is the explosion of data that's now available and being captured across healthcare. Now, all hospital systems have had to have electronic medical records, which means that an enormous amount of clinical data is being captured and stored about real life, patient experiences in healthcare. There's an explosion of genomic data, proteomic data, all kinds of other data that's being captured and analyzed, and the tools to process that data and draw insight out of it are also rapidly advancing. So the combination of those two is sort of an explosion of possibilities, let's call it, right, in data analytics, and ultimately in precision medicine, we believe. So that's one. I think the pace of innovation just on the clinical side also seems to be ever accelerating. The insights that researchers are gaining and the rate at which they're able to turn that into actionable information is astounding. So trying to react to that is difficult, and of course, the regulatory and reimbursement environment always lags the innovations, right? So the faster we go, the further they fall behind in some ways, right? The other trend that's very real to us at Inova is that the reimbursements are declining in general, right? So it's either what's called accountable care, which is fixed price care, or the reimbursement amounts are just declining, or they're being pushed onto the patient, who in many cases can't afford it. So we have to deal with the reality of, if we stand still, we will probably have declining revenue. So we need to keep moving. If we're going to have to either materially reduce the cost of care in many cases, and we're doing that in many cases, but you can't do enough and you can't do it fast enough. And there's other services that we'll be able to offer. A lot of those in in personalized health and precision medicine in particular, because these are services that weren't available before, and now we can offer them, and we think ultimately get some value for them. So the pressure on the healthcare provider segment of the economy is pretty intense, and there's definitely some folks who are struggling, with cash flows, and you hear more and more about hospitals getting into financial trouble and consolidation and so on, and those are industry trends, but it's there's a real reason for it. And it's really starting to hurt in some cases.
So that was 2. Do you have a third one?
I did I think the big data.
The big data, okay. All right.
The clinical innovation.
Got it, okay,
and
got
then,
it.
So those are my 3. I don't have a 4th one.
You don't have a 4th one?
You give me time, I'll come up with one.
Sure, no problem. Maybe at the end of the interview.
Yes.
So I actually, I recently saw an article about the Aetna CEO, Mark Bertolini, in a private conference had talked about now Obamacare and Trump Care, and it was really more about because you're talking about reimbursements, but a single payer healthcare system, right? So you have Canada, France, UK, Australia, they're all on universal coverage, right? Or some form of it. But it was kind of funny because the CEO said we should start talking about this. We should start having conversations. And I thought that was interesting because it's sort of like he's kind of shooting himself in the foot if we have it, right? So my question to you is, big if, right? If we decide to go into sort of a single payer healthcare system, what will that do to innovation?
Well, the answer is I don't know, but I think the U.S. could end up being a 2-tiered system, where you have high net worth individuals paying for premium services, whatever that means, and I do think with the concentration of research and universities here that we probably continue to be strong in that area, but it would definitely hurt. I mean, I know on the in the healthcare systems, the least profitable patients are the Medicaid patients, and then the Medicare patients, and if they become all the patients,
right?
Because it's CMS that sets the reimbursement rates for those groups. There's less money in the system for delivering care and ultimately for research and development, I would think. So now a lot of the research R&D money does come from the government as well. The NIH grants and SBIRs and STTRs and all the many grant programs that the government has. If they cut those too, then that'll hurt as well. If they take some of the money that they think that might be saved on the healthcare delivery side and moved it to research, then maybe that would stem the tide. I don't know, but it seems like it would be a risky move with sort of unknown consequences. Let's put it that way. In terms of innovation, I'm not commenting on whether I think a single payer system is a more equitable system for the country.
Right.
That's a different question altogether. So,
okay,
yeah,
that's fair enough. Okay, so that's it's just because it's sort of like that's like a hot topic these days, and so startup. I mean, there's entrepreneurs in this room. They're like, should I do a healthcare startup or should I do an ed tech or I mean, they're always going through this, and so there's something where the pie might not be bigger but shrinking, right? That's something to put in consideration. So so I wanted to what do you think is the? I'll just make a general question here. What do you think is the future of Inova? And so do you think are they on the right track to sort of find the next? I don't know what's the big innovation that happened, Illumina, to find the next Illumina. Do you think what's sort of the 5? What do you think it's going to look like in 5 years with all this innovation that's happening?
Inova strategic investments in
for
IPHA or all of Inova?
Well, you can answer
The
whatever.
harder one is all of Inova.
Okay, let's do all Inova.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes. Well, it depends if we have a single payer system or not, right? But no,
you can answer the easier one. Let's just do
we're
it
working with related. So we're trying very hard to help Inova transform itself into a sort of the healthcare system of the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we bring the best technologies for and care models to the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we predict disease? How do we prevent disease? I mean, I think the best outcome is a very small hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
And lots of services being delivered directly to patients in their homes or through their physicians and so on, and avoiding, fewer heart attacks, less diabetes, less cancer, How do we get ahead of these things to prevent them? Because ultimately that's much cheaper to prevent than it is to treat. So that's ultimately where we're headed, and that's where the reimbursement system is headed. That's where, CMS wants to go. It's where the government wants to go. It's where, as individual citizens, I think we all want to go, right? How you incentivize a provider to keep people out of the hospital is is a challenge of sorts, but there are ways, and it's starting to happen. So, my hope is that the investments we made in funds and directly in companies, and both through the fund investing activities and through the accelerator, will be products that are in daily use inside the system and that are improving the quality of care and wellness of the 2 million people that we sort of view as our care community around us. And that's the ultimate goal, and that's what Pete and I and the rest of the team are trying to deliver. It's a lofty goal and it's a long, hard road, but that's the vision.
I wanted to get more specifics, like wearable, IoT, genomics, right? Big data.
Mm-hmm.
How would you prioritize? Do you think wearables is bigger than software or other way around? I know. It's
hard to weight these things because the wearables ultimately bring us into the home, so we can monitor people's health as they walk around in their daily lives, right? How well do people sleep last night? How well do what's their heart rate been? Those things that you could react to when they're not in a life-threatening stage, right? So that's critical, but the insight into what to do with that information comes from other innovations, and the analytics to process all this data, right, comes from somewhere else, and so it's all ultimately part of a whole care model delivery system. So what's hard is that we don't get to see it all together. We see it in little bits and pieces, and so we find something, a wearable that's really great, but we don't have the ability to process or analyze the data yet. But we know that it'll, so then you have to try and find that piece. I mean, it's all trying to put all this stuff together in a coherent whole is the real challenge.
Well, the whole philosophy about prevention and wellness that you talked about, I just remember putting on. Jawbone is now bankrupt, right? And then now Fitbit with the whole wearable trend is not as as optimistic as people thought. And then now you see sort of Apple. It's something where they can now implant devices so they can track levels of sugar for diabetes. So it's these things where it's what is the value? Putting in devices in your body because you're trying to be well, you're trying to be well, and not after the fact where it's oh my God, I'm sick and now I have to do all these invasive things.
A very good friend whose son has juvenile diabetes and who is actually the CEO of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And it's incredible what they're doing. And a lot of this stuff it's wearables, and it's it's things that are adjusting blood sugar automatically, without even human intervention, right? These things know how to getting smarter.
Right.
And that's a population that's where you're willing to accept certain lifestyle changes in order to guarantee your long-term health, because it's terrible things can happen if you're not on guard. So it probably starts in places like that, people with chronic illnesses where they're only their best chances of survival is to do some of these invasive or leading edge sort of things, right? And then you find ways to maybe make it more for the casual user, if there's such a thing, right? The worried well, as they call them, right? And to track their own their own health. Yeah.
Right. That's probably I probably fit in that category. So one of the things that I always ask to our speaker, because most of our speakers are here in DC, so I always try to be like very, very much DC tech or DMV. In health tech, it's more of like DMV Baltimore, right? Because of Johns Hopkins. What do you think? Does it make sense for health tech startups to start here in this area versus others, and what makes this area uniquely, positioned to be one of the top places to start up a health tech company?
It's a tough question because you look at the health tech and it's not the way, if you're an information technology startup, Silicon Valley is the place to be, right? If you're a health tech startup, they're much more scattered around the country. There's pockets in Nashville and in Boston and New York, some here, some around Johns Hopkins, some around some of our leading academic medical centers, places like that. So, I've been I've been living in the DC area now for about 30 years, and I've made a lot of investments in this area, but not just. I do think that people talk about needing more local venture capital. I tend to think that your community is really the people who are concerned about the same issues that you are, and those people meet at conventions and in other events, and some of them are here, but some of them are scattered around the country. And so you want to be the best at what you do in your area of discipline, right? It doesn't do you much good to be the best one in the DC area. You really want to be the best one in the country, right? Right. Now, but why would you want to be here? I think if you're doing anything related to the government, the federal government, whether it's reimbursements or other things, you're looking for research money, this is a great place to be. It's all here. And so you can make the contacts, and you can be in person with people that otherwise you have to fly in to see, and it's a huge advantage, I would think, for anyone who wants to get involved there. It's also a relatively wealthy region, so angel money is possible to raise here. It's a particularly well-educated community, both in IT and in medical sciences. So workforce issues, I think they're manageable here. And I think there's I would say I wouldn't say great, but there's a good, strong entrepreneurial tradition in the region, and there's folks who've been successful investors, entrepreneurs, et cetera, who live and work here, who like living and working here. And so there's certainly enough activity here for you to build your company. If you're building a company in a geography that doesn't have a lot of those things, you'd probably need to move. People don't need to move from Washington. You can find what you need here. And I think proximity to the government actually has real value in most medical startups. So I think we're a great choice. Are we? I'm not going to say we're the best choice. I don't know who's the best choice. It's not like I have a Silicon Valley I'd point to and say, pretty good, sure. It's cold there though, Yeah, you have to be a Patriots fan if you move there, right?
I was going to say it's Patriots.
Anyway, those are. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the DC area. I've lived here a long time. I've invested my career in the tech community and the entrepreneurial community here, and now the healthcare community. But it's you have to recognize there are other great places to start companies, and we don't have we have to make it worth people's while to want to be here, So part of what we're doing at Inova is trying to sort of opening our arms to startups, right? That's what we're trying to do as a system, and say we really want to work with you here. Hopefully we're making this a more welcoming place for entrepreneurs to work. Yeah.
So we're going to open up the floor for Q&A, and then I have two last questions. So I think we have time for maybe one or two questions. Yeah. Does anybody have a question? Well, first of all, do we have any health tech startups here or any?
Yeah.
And do any of you guys have questions? Yes? Okay. All right, just say your name and then.
Hi, my name is Zaid. I'm from a company called The Patient Is In.
Okay.
So we're AI-based, but it's app-based.
Okay.
So HIPAA compliant, real-time messaging, augmented reality for wound care, compressing patient wait time, stuff like that. It seems that we would fit in, but we took the approach to build out the technology first, secure endorsements from the major doctors, including Inova top surgeons.
Good.
So do you think that's fun-worthy or is that accelerator-worthy? we're going to version 3. Hopefully we'll launch with Apple on stage.
Yeah.
Hopefully in September.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, the good news is a lot of us overlap. So, and I've had folks come in looking for a Series A, and say, could you tell me more about this accelerator idea? maybe I'm a better fit there. So, and it wasn't it wasn't me who brought it up. It didn't occur to me actually at the time. So I think it's a conversation we'd have about, what's next, for you. What do you think the next significant milestones are for you to reach, and how we could help you get there? And also, one thing I want to make clear is we do we do make investments, but if there's a product or service that we think the system really needs, and there's not an investment opportunity, that's okay. We actually have introduced companies into the system where we know there's a need. We've had a clearly expressed need for a certain technology or service, and said, if you find a company like this, call me. So we pass those along, and if it's what we want to do is we want to find the best company to address that need, and if the best company isn't raising money, then we don't invest, and if the second best company is raising money, it doesn't matter, right? Because we want the best company in the system. So that's we get kudos, if you will, for both. I'm really not interested in making an investment in the second best company anyway, right? But just to be clear, we don't mind if it ends up just being something that we use, but don't invest in.
Good. Next question is from Hatch. Hatch IT.
Hatch IT, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brian. So Hooks, thank you for your contributions to the tech and innovation in this area through Valhalla and now with the Inova Accelerator. With any accelerator or incubator program, I feel like mentorship is a key factor to the success of that program. So I was curious to know, I guess, who were your mentors as you were forming your career, and in what ways did they impact your career?
Sure. So we didn't go back to ancient times, but I actually, before I was in the venture business, I was CEO of a private venture-backed company. I was president of a public software company, and I worked in a couple other information technology companies that were all venture-backed, some public, some private. And in terms of mentors, I had there isn't one person who pulled me aside and gave me sage advice along the way, with the possible exception of my father. Right? So there wasn't that one. I did have people who showed me opportunities. And I think the one that's very obvious, the first company I worked for in this area was a company called System Center. It was a software company, small company, but had gone public, about 30 million in revenue, grew to about 120, 130, and then sold. And the CEO was the founder, and I worked closely with him. And I went to work for an IT services company after System Center sold, and he was in the board of another local software company. And sadly, the CEO of that company got brain cancer and had to resign. And so he pulled me in at all of age 31 to run this company. That was sort of a big break for me, to go from I was a senior guy in a small IT services business to a CEO of a venture-backed software company in DC. We raised more money and merged with another company. We took the combined company public and so on. So that was the big break for me. I do think it's not so much about a mentor is great if you can get one. Not everybody does, but I think if you build sort of lasting professional relationships, personal and professional relationships, those are they're going to be mentors, but they're often good sounding boards for you, right? They give you good advice and counsel, and they sort of know you well enough to say, that doesn't sound like a job for you, Hooks. Why are you thinking about doing that? You need some people like that around you, even if they're not the wise sage, mentor that we all keep hoping is going to appear in our lives, right? Yeah.
I think we have time for one more. You had a question?
Hi, my name is Bob Hedaya. I'm a physician, and over the last 20 years, I've developed a method that I've applied to chronic illness. That's personalized medicine, digestion, immune function, nutrition, hormones, oxidative stress, genetics, epigenetics, etc. In 2009, I actually began to use it with patients with mild cognitive impairment and early and mid-stage dementia. I'm able to stop it and in many cases reverse it. I've got it up here, but I don't have a tech platform, and I'm wondering, is this something that might fit into this program of Inova, or where would you steer me?
It's probably not. I think it.
Sorry, they had to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. We have to see something more tangible than if I do this in your head. You know, I think how can we turn that into a useful product that could be used at scale? You know, and besides cloning you, which I guess would be a technology we could apply, but it would be we'd need some other way to get at it. And we'd probably, maybe my partners come up with a better idea than I would for how to do that. But whether you turn it into software or some kind of a knowledge base, so there are, and we're investors in a company called Perion DX that they take the output from sequencers like Illumina, which is, you like to talk about, Thermo Fisher, and they analyze the variants, and they present the latest thinking of what these variants mean, and what's the, what are the related best practices, and in some cases, if the physician wants it, they'll even provide them with suggested course of action and therapies, and so a lot of that's captured in this knowledge base, right? So some of it's just is factual, right? What are the variants, and what is that, and then what does it mean, and how do you react to it? It gets softer, right? So it sort of has to get to that stage. You have to have some of it in that stage for us to believe that it makes sense. So there's companies that, in this case, it's mostly for cancer-related activities, but we also work with a company that does pharmacogenomics interpretation, right? So what drugs should you take, which ones might kill you, and which ones won't work, right? It's all pretty helpful information, actually. And that's, again, a knowledge base that gets applied, right? So that's the form I think you'd ultimately want it to take. We've seen similar ones for Parkinson's and stroke patients and so on, sort of recovery plans for them. So yeah, I think it has to take some. I don't know if it's an app. I don't know if it's a like I call it a knowledge base, which is really delivered through a software platform of some kind. And the software platform, it probably isn't that important. It just has to be presented in a way that's useful to the physicians. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if that was a good answer, but that was my answer.
That's a good answer. No,
Yeah?
you guys can talk more afterwards.
Yeah.
So we're kind of running out of time. So 2 last questions.
Yeah.
So if you could turn back time 20 years ago, or 25, whatever, 25 years ago, what would be the single best piece of advice you would have given yourself?
Right. So a couple things. One, I think only work in a job that's interesting and challenging to you. If it's not, you're not going to be very good at it. So move on, even if it's inconvenient. And have an understanding spouse. Well, that helps too. I think I mentioned this before. Build lasting personal professional relationships. I'm amazed how many times the same people keep coming back into my life. And I got to know Inova because I was volunteering on a board for a friend, right? So make time to stay healthy, make time for your family, and one thing that I've learned along the way is I got involved with some not-for-profit activities and sort of community activities in my 40s. I wish I'd done it sooner. I think everybody should be involved in ways to give back to their community all through their career, and not say, well, I'm too young, and well, now I'm starting a family. This isn't a good time, and now I'm in my prime earning years, so it's not a good time. It's so easy to put these things off.
Yeah.
Just get involved early, and it's incredibly rewarding. And I've met all kinds of great people, and I think it's very enriching in general. So that's the advice I give to my stupid 20-year-old self. So yeah. Yeah.
And the last question is probably the most important.
Yeah.
Ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay. So who's your favorite superhero and why?
That's an important one. Yeah.
Or historical figure?
Or so, yeah, right. I guess superheroes probably easier. Well, I see. I keep watching these movies. So Wolverine,
Okay.
I guess would be my favorite superhero.
Okay.
And why?
Yeah, why?
Well, I think like most superheroes, he always had this passion to do the right thing, and it always hurt, right? So he always healed, but it always hurt, right? And he still did it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you saw the last movie, Logan,
Mm-hmm.
he actually sort of slowly loses his
Right.
powers,
Right.
but he doesn't stop.
Right. Cool. All right.
Doesn't stop doing the right thing, even when it's probably not going to survive it.
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.